My name's Leslie Peterson, and I help bloggers turn their modest websites into thriving online enterprises with SEO, email marketing, and a little hard love encouragement to always move forward consistently and with a plan. Hello, bloggers. Today, we're going to talk about the pop-up on your website that you use to capture email addresses and to offer a lead magnet to people who come and visit your site. I'm going to share with you 5 incredible statistics that will help you in creating a successful pop-up. And I got these statistics from my email system of choice, Drip.com. They did an original research study on 1 billion pop-ups. If you happen to listen to the podcast from earlier this week where I tell you about 5 email hacks that you as a blogger can steal from the e-commerce world, then you might have heard me reference this study. So after I recorded that podcast, I just remembered how much I love that study. So I went back and looked for it and just once again was blown away by kind of the major shifts, the major differences that can happen in a conversion based on small, little nuanced settings. And that's what I want to cover with you today because I would love to see you grow your email list. And I'm hoping that one or more of these statistics will help you to do that. So the first one I'm going to cover is whether or not your pop-up should have an image. And I think for the most part, as bloggers, we're keyed into how important an image is in making a conversion, whether it's on a blog post or in the social media channel, but especially on the pop-up of your lead magnet. But sometimes we get lazy, or sometimes we just want to try new things out and see which one works better or worse for us. But here's what they found in this study. Pop-ups with an image convert more than 83% better than pop-ups without an image. I mean, that's a really huge number. So without an image, you can expect a conversion rate of about 2%. And with an image, you can expect a conversion rate of about 3.8%. And that's a large difference. So whatever you're doing today, change your calendar, rearrange your appointments. If you don't have images on your pop-up, that is one of the quickest but most effective things that you can do to increase the conversion. And here's another thing to note about that number. Pop-ups with images convert on average at 3.8%. So this is across 1 billion pop-ups, all different industries, all different countries, just across the board. But that's a good number to strive for. So the other thing you can do as you're checking on your pop-up and making sure that there's an image there is to look at what your conversion rate is and make sure that you're in at a little bit above, a little bit below that number. If you're significantly below that number, 3.8%, then it's time to reevaluate that lead magnet. Now, it could be the lead magnet that's the problem, but it could also be one of the settings. And we're going to keep going through the list. I've got 5 of them for you to review. But it is a note to you, an indication, a symptom of another problem that you're going to want to review. So 3.8% across all industries. That's not just for bloggers. That's not just for food bloggers or travel bloggers or parenting bloggers. That's just a general number, but it's a really good place for us to start as a target conversion rate. Okay, that's number 1. So make sure your pop-up has an image. Number 2 is the number of fields that you have on the pop-up, number of input fields that you have on the pop-up. And let me explain what I mean by an input field. That's where somebody is going to give you a piece of information. Almost always, it's going to have at least one field where you're capturing that person's email address. Otherwise, the pop-up has a completely different function, right? So we're always going to have one field to capture their email address. Sometimes people also like to capture their name. So there might be two fields if you're capturing just their first name or if you're asking for their full name in one field. And then I have seen pop-ups with 3, 4, 5 additional input fields. And not a surprise, I'm sure, those with 3, 4, 5 input fields convert at a significantly lower rate. So once you ask for 3 pieces of information, you drop down to a conversion rate of 1% or less. That's really, really low. And so now the question is, 1 input field or 2 input fields? Should you only ask for the email address? Are you hurting yourself if you also ask for their name? And the answer is it's about equal. So 1 input field has a conversion rate of 3.2%. 2 input fields have a conversion rate of about 3.3%. So within a margin of error there. 3.2%, 3.3%, 1 field, 2 field. So if you've got 1 field and you want to keep 1 field, you're good. If you've got 2 fields and you want to keep 2 fields, you're good. But the other thing is, if you have just 1 field but you wanted to collect the name, or you are collecting the name and you don't really find that it's useful and you want to move to just 1 input field, that means you can move back and forth freely without really having to worry about your conversion rate going down. So that's good news. If you have more than 2 fields, please take one of those off. I will tell you that if you're looking to capture additional information outside of just the name and the email address, I think that's fantastic, but I would really recommend using a multi-step form to do that. And I go into a lot of detail about that multi-step form in this the podcast that came out earlier this week, the 5 email hacks that bloggers can steal from e-commerce. That is the way to go, because the first page of the pop-up just has those 1 or 2 input fields. You're capturing the information, you're sending off the lead magnet that you promised, and then you're asking for additional information on the next page of the pop-up, so people don't have to fill that out, but they typically choose to because they're not feeling that pressure. So they see a conversion rate. So if people actually fill out that first part where they give you their email address, then the likelihood of them filling out the second part with those additional pieces of information is between 76 and 78%. That's huge. And that's obviously a lot better than a 1% or less than 1% conversion on the input, on a form where the input fields are 3 or more. So 1 or 2 input fields only. Either one is fine. If you need more information than that, use a multi-step form. Number 3, how long should you wait before you engage the pop-up on the site? Now, not every email management tool lets you control this. I love Drip. It lets me decide how long I want to wait. And the ideal time is 8 seconds. So 8 seconds after page load, that's when the pop-up form should come up. 3.6% engagement rate at the 8-second mark. The next best time is 3 seconds, but it goes down a lot. It goes down almost an entire percent. 2.7% is the conversion rate at 3 seconds. So if you can't pick 8 seconds, pick 3 seconds. I like 8 seconds better. 3 seconds seems a little fast because people haven't even made that unconscious decision if your page is the right page for them. Now, here's an interesting fact I know many of you are using me on Mediavine and you're using Grow. I use Grow. I'm using both my own pop-up forms and Grow, and then I'm also integrating the two using Zapier. But I do notice that the conversion rate on my Grow pop-ups is significantly less than on my Drip pop-ups. And I reached out to Mediavine and asked them what how much time they allow before the pop-up comes up, and they told me it's 7 seconds. Now, this was a couple months ago. I don't know if they've changed it since then, but at the time I reached out to them, they told me it was 7 seconds. So I looked at the 7-second information on this study of 1 billion pop-ups, and it's one of the worst rates. It's 1.8% conversion rate at the 7-second mark. So just that 1 second extra almost doubles the conversion rate according to this study. So when I reached out to them, I asked them, or after they told me the 7 seconds, I asked them, is there a way that we can make that configurable? And I shared this study with them, and they never really wrote me back. But I think that's interesting, and that's really when it solidified my decision to keep both my drip pop-up forms and the grow pop-up forms. And I'm really glad that I did, because I can see a significant difference in the conversion rate, even though the lead magnet that I'm offering is exactly the same. Whether it's grow or drip, person can choose how they want to sign up, and they see the same offering from both of those modes or methods of sign up. So if you are seeing a lower than desired pop-up conversion rate using Grow, then you might decide to continue using Grow because of the information that it's collecting for a time when Google's going to remove those third-party cookies, but you might consider adding your own pop-up to your tool bag as well. Okay, number 4, sometimes if you are using a tool, you can decide when to display the pop-up, not based on the amount of time that's gone by, but based on how far down the page the user scrolls. And so we often wonder, okay, well, what's the right amount of scrolling before we do a pop-up if that's the method we're after? And it turns out that number, according to this study, is 35%. So a 35% scroll before showing the pop-up provides a conversion rate of 3.4%. The next best time was 50% scroll, and that's 2.9% conversion rate. And just for the record, the only others that were above 2% were 15% and 40%. So 35% is ideal, then 50%, 15%, 40%. If you do any other numbers, you're moving down to, close to 1% conversion rate. So 35% is what you want to look for. And then finally, this is probably not a surprise to you. It was not a surprise to me. But I often look at the number of people who sign up for my newsletter on mobile versus on desktop, and the number is significantly higher on mobile, which is no surprise because 80% of the people who visit my site are doing so on mobile. But when we look at the percentages, we can see that the number of the percentage of people who are signing up for the newsletter is almost 2 times that on mobile as it is on desktop. So let me say that again. So not only are more people seeing your pop-up on mobile, but a significantly larger number of those people are actually signing up as well. 3.1% on desktop, 5.8% on mobile. So that's why there's such a large number of your subscriber base coming from mobile. It's not just about the number of people, but it's also the percentage of the conversion. What does that mean? That means that you need to look at what your pop-up looks like on mobile and make sure that it's just as appealing as on mobile as it is on desktop. Oftentimes we focus on what it looks like on desktop because we're probably creating it on desktop, but you also need to look at that mobile view of the pop-up. What I like about Drip is that it lets me stylize my mobile pop-up in a completely different way, if I want to, than my desktop pop-up. So I might want to change the picture to maybe something more vertical on mobile and then more horizontal on desktop. Or I might want to change the subject, the headline, so that it's easier to read on mobile than it is on desktop, where it has a wider space to display the information. So look for that in your tool as well, and just make sure that you're not only double checking but triple checking what your pop-up looks like on mobile. So those are the 5 best takeaways I had from that study. I really love the study. I'll link to it in the show notes, but here's the gist of it again. Make sure you have an image in your pop-up. Make sure that you're using just one input field or 2 input fields, but not more than that. And if you are using more than that, then consider the multi-step pop-up. Number 3, if you are displaying a pop-up based on how much time has gone by, that perfect number is 8 seconds, not 7 seconds and not 9 seconds, because that's a world of difference on either side of that 8-second mark. So target 8 seconds. If you prefer to target scroll instead of time, then you're going to shoot for 35% scroll before that pop-up shows up. And finally, make sure that you're optimizing your pop-up for mobile, because mobile not only has more visitors, but it has a higher conversion rate at 5.8%. I hope that was helpful. I know sometimes as we finally come up with an idea for a lead magnet, we finally design it, put it together, and it's time to go build the pop-up. And there's all these questions, which are fantastic. I love the configurability that the EMS systems offer us now, but it can get a little confusing about what we should pick and which one feels right. And sometimes that moves us into a state of paralysis. So I hope these statistics will help you move forward in building your lead magnet or in optimizing your lead magnet, especially if you're running a conversion rate below that kind of 3.5% number that we heard regularly here in the study. And if you have a lead magnet, I would love to know about it. Head over to our free Facebook group. Come and join. It doesn't cost anything. We're very active on a regular basis and would love to take a look at your lead magnet. Come in and join the group and drop your lead magnet in the Facebook group. Thanks, everybody.